Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are hosting our 6th webinar of the fall. This one is specifically covering the admissions process and some of the things that Ashley and I just think will be helpful for you to have considered, things that you may not have thought about during the process and how we work with the admissions process with funding options here at the Bush School. So we're going to be covering between the two of us some of this content, but we are looking forward to answering some of your questions during the session at the end, which is the Q&A, or if you have something that's on your mind right now and you don't want to forget it, just throw that in the chat questions, and either Ashley and I will answer those as we go along. So as a quick introduction, I'm Catherine Meyer. I'm Director of Admissions and Recruitment here at the Bush School. And then Ashley Treadway will be joining us a little further in as Assistant Director of Admissions. And the two of us are the ones that generally will be picking up the phone and answering your calls or answering your emails when you have questions for us during the process, which we do encourage you to do. We don't want you wondering what the school wants from you compared to other schools. So we'd rather you ask those questions up front and get answers. So the admissions process and timeline, I'm going to be covering a lot of material here, including kind of the background and research and some helpful websites, some things to consider when applying, the application requirements that we are asking from you, which is sometimes similar to what other schools are doing, some admissions advice we want you to think about, the steps and timeline for applying. I'll provide our average statistics for our Bush School classes, financing your studies, which is just a couple of slides because I've got a longer one coming up in a few more weeks that's going to be covering financial aid, and then things to think about when you're comparing your options for grad schools. So again, what's on your mind? Just be sure to ask us those. So one thing that is often asked of us is, when is the right time for grad school? And you have to remember that life is about all these experiences and what you want out of it. So as you were coming out of high school, getting into college, you were trying to figure out life at a very young age. And so you're thinking about what your interests are, what your possible career options, how do you need to get there? The grad school experience is a deeper step into this. You've got to think about where you want to be and what kind of networking options that you can possibly provide yourself in a grad program. You need to think about the things that do interest you with a major. It may or may not be related to your undergrad major. We actually get quite a few students who are shifting their emphasis maybe away from what they thought they wanted to do, but hasn't been providing kind of that feel good, I really enjoy this and I want to continue to do this for the rest of my life. So many times they will change course of action, and that is okay. You just have to be sure that you are relaying that information in your statement of purpose to the faculty. Are you inclined to have done an internship that piqued your interest? Study abroad opportunities that you wanted to do, and now you found out that you love international affairs and want to do something in your career that has to do with that and travel. So you just got to figure out if the additional training and networking is relevant for a field path that you want to go into. And I will tell you that in international affairs and in public service and administration, where our students are heading, you can get careers from that with a bachelor's degree, absolutely. What we're trying to offer is an additional opportunity to develop specific skill sets that will set you apart from someone who went into that field with just a bachelor's. So not only are you going to come up with more skill sets, but it's the networking with the faculty and who they know in different areas and who our career services can help you network, our own alumni that you can research with and call and talk to. So there's a lot of benefit for a grad program. So when is the best time to attend grad school? That's going to be up to you. Do our faculty prefer that you work for a couple of years and get a little under your belt in experiences and knowing what you want out of it? Absolutely yes. But we are not going to prevent solid students who can write well, who can convey their experiences, who we know are a good fit. Even if you're straight out from undergrad, you can be admitted to these programs. So the best time to attend is when it makes sense for you. So the public service jobs, a lot of times people will ask me, what can I do with this degree? And it's hard to necessarily relay that depending on what you're wanting to do in terms of Master of International Affairs, Master of Public Service. I want to do International Affairs with Public Health. I'm looking at the MIP, which is a policy degree that requires 6 years of experience. They all come with a different timeline and expectation of the kinds of careers you might be pursuing. But I've written some of the ones that I see over and over that our students are getting into, and I've kind of listed by a very generic term that you'll see on application. So the analysts, right? People who are going in, but they may be working with budgets or programs or intel or European issues. There's all kinds of analysts out there. You're coordinating. Are you coordinating programs, Homeland Security programs, government affairs, public health, after school programs, nonprofits, consultants? Many of our students, particularly on the MIA side, might be starting with a private industry government consulting before they can get their foot in the door in federal government. But all kinds. You've even got money laundering areas. You've got developers of policy and protocols, investigators for criminal cases or social equality, equity, managers of a nonprofit, managers of legislative offices, researchers in all kinds of policy fields. So it really depends on what you want to do as to the career path that you need to niche yourself or prepare skill sets within those fields. So I felt like some of the options that our students can do some research, if you have not yet, for instance, as a public affairs and administration person, looked at the NASPA.org website, that's probably one you want to. A lot of good information is found on NASPA, including some career information. Top schools across the nation are listed there through a search function. You've got the organizations with APAM and ASPA that all have to do with public affairs and administration. And the international affairs side, a really great website is APSIA.org, Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. Another great thing that anyone here should look at, and I will talk about this in the the financial aid website I'll do later, but APSIA.org has some top funding programs that you might want to resource. And it is provided there under their scholarships and financial aid section on their website. They also have the Council on Foreign Relations, International Student Association, Center for Strategic and International Studies. There's all kinds of international affairs related websites you should do some research on. You're going to be able to find out more about the kinds of careers that you can eventually get into. If you're interested in state government jobs, definitely start searching, Googling for the ones that are in your state. If you're doing federal government job listings, go to USA.gov, usajobs.gov. Definitely you have to go through those websites, and it's extensive. National security and diplomacy sites, there's intelligence.gov, careers.state.gov, AFSA.org. And then for international economics and development, there's worldbank.org, DevEx, all kinds of options. But please write some of those down that are interested in your areas, because you can find some additional websites and resources that will then take you to another one and another one. It gets you thinking about the kinds of questions you need to be asking for grad schools as you get ready. So when you're considering applying, keep in mind there's multiple things you're needing to evaluate for each of your programs. And I recommend even that you do a spreadsheet to compare these. The curriculum, what are you wanting out of your curriculum? The specializations, is it theory or is it going to be a practical one? For instance, we have a capstone project, which is more practical based. So we're not the best preparation for someone that wants to go and do an additional PhD. So you need to ask those questions. Faculty, what's the ratio of faculty to students? The kinds of backgrounds of those faculty who will be teaching you. What kind of relevant work or research can you do with faculty, or can you? The reputation, have you looked to see if they're accredited, if they're ranked? Keep in mind, sometimes those rankings aren't going to matter as much when they're top 1 through 40, 50. It's not always about being in the top 10, because a lot of schools are done more by reputation than necessarily the program that you're interested in. Additionally, the cost. What's the tuition and fees per year? What kind of aid can you receive? And very important for you guys is the career assistance. What kind of rates are they showing each year? Are you going to be able to get a job when you get out? What kind of employers are featured under them? Do you recognize them? Are they in your area of interest? And then when you're talking about location, when we eventually get to the point of getting back to campuses, you need to talk about the facilities and where they're located. Does the weather affect you in any way? Are you a cold, warm type weather person that you just want to stay in that region where you're a little more comfortable? The social atmosphere, transportation, will you need a car where you're going? All these things are going to play a part in your ultimate decisions. So you need to be thinking about them ahead of time. And then what matters is going to be the access to the programming that you're interested, the activities that they can help provide you. How much do the students and professors care about what they do? Are you excited to come to class and learn more about these areas? And is the cost reasonable and work for you? Same thing with the reputation. Is this a school that's going to take you places and it's the right place for you? Not everyone's going to find the same emphasis areas that interest them and decide on a school just based on one or two things. It may be all of these things. But our admissions process and timeline runs similarly to other programs like us. Many of us have priority deadlines or first deadlines that hit somewhere between December and February. We've moved our priority deadline to be December. The reason being is we need more time to process because we do an interview, and if we wait and keep putting that deadline date in January, we're spending an incredible amount of hours up here trying to process and get them ready for faculty. So if you guys can help us out and get those applications in by mid-December, the December 15th deadline, that's our push for you. But we will have hard deadlines that follow. January will be the MIA hard deadline, January 15th. And then for the MPSA, we'll have their hard deadline February 15th. But our faculty will get their eyes on applications in January. So there's no benefit of applying necessarily early for that typical MPSA and MIA timeline. In February and March, we conduct interviews for those two programs. And I don't yet know if we will have them in person. We're still trying to figure out what the regulations will be. Texas A&M is open and has classes in person with some hybrid formats to go along with it for those that aren't comfortable being on campus. So I'm hopeful that I can do something here for people. But either way, we will always have that Zoom option. Sometimes we've done them via Skype or phone interviews as well. But our MPSA, we're trying to hold that February 19th and 20th. The MIA will hold that February 26th and 27th. So just put a hold on your calendar for that. Many times we can try to schedule those interviews on those days as opposed to maybe somewhere else in February. But definitely those that cannot attend, we will work a timeline with you to get those interviews taken care of in the month of February. Those that can come, once we get this up and running, we will provide partial travel reimbursements. And the interview conference weekend, this ICW, is typically a round robin event that runs half a day Friday and all day Saturday. So you've got different panels that you can attend. You've got interviews one-on-one with faculty in their offices, if we were able to do that. We have resource tables that have a number of different funding, student organizations, living, that you can go to and from and talk to people. And then you also get the chance to meet alumni. There's at least one panel with that come from all different kinds of areas of federal government, the private industry, state and local, nonprofits. And we bring those alumni in from all over the nation just to have some diversity of thought and action of where they are. But you also have an opportunity to meet the current students, the faculty, and the staff. And then in early March, we make those final admissions and aid decisions. And then you guys have until April 15th to respond to us with those responses. So I've had a question here, and if I've missed a few earlier ones, my apologies, but it asks if everyone is invited to interviews or are they considered in the second phase of the application process. So my answer to that is when we're first reviewing applications, we're trying to take the top to move them forward. And that's going to be most of you, because most of you, we will want to meet you and have an opportunity to interact with you, to get to know you past that paper file. So I'm going to give these numbers later, but I'll say it right now. Typically, if we're looking for a class of 90, it means we want to interview 180. So it depends on how many applications there are. If there's 250 applications, we've got to toss 60 people, 70 people off to the side that we don't even get a chance to interview you, because we just don't have the resources to do more than that. So really, there is a first phase of going through the process, figuring out who to eliminate, and then the rest of you kind of move forward. Is there a benefit of turning in the application before December 15th? Because they won't be reviewed before then? You're correct. Faculty don't get their eyes on those applications until January. So turning it in October doesn't really offer you any benefit other than it's off your desk and onto ours, and you just have more time to get papers to clear through there. All right, now having said that, I'm going to pass this on to Ashley Treadway, who's going to talk about the application requirements and some of the advice that we have, and then I'll jump in as we need it and keep an eye on some of the more chat questions. So Ashley, take it away.
All right, so just to let everyone know, the application system has changed starting this summer 2021 admission and on. For spring 2021 for the MIP program, we're still in the old application system, so Apply Texas. So some of this information will be new. So just to kind of go over, we've updated our admissions website on the Bush School website. It has very detailed instructions. It has a printout that you can save as PDF or print to your printer that has detailed instructions as well as a checklist. So our website is here at the top of this slide. We encourage you to check that out. So to start, for the MPSA 2-year degree, we only admit students for the fall semesters only. Like we said earlier, the December 15th is our priority deadline and February 15th is our hard deadline. For MPSA, we often take late applications. It just depends on if our class is full. And in that case, we would extend the deadline and allow some late applications to roll in. But the required pieces for MPSA are going to be your online application and, of course, the application fee, your transcripts, which we do require transcripts from all 4-year colleges and universities attended. We don't need community college transcripts, but all of the other transcripts we do need. We can accept unofficial copies to review your application, but official copies are needed if admitted in order to register for class. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail here in just a second. We would also need a statement of purpose, a resume, 3 letters of recommendation, and then GRE test scores or GMAT test scores are completely optional. We do recommend those that have a cumulative GPA below a 3.2 to go ahead and submit test scores to strengthen their application and offset a lower GPA, but it's still just optional and it's up to you. And then if for international applicants or those that are from non-English speaking countries, we do require a proof of English proficiency. For the Masters of International Affairs, very similar application requirements. So we're still going with a December 15th priority deadline, fall entry only, with a hard deadline of January 15th. And I think Ellie had asked a question about what's the benefit of applying early. If you apply around that December 15th deadline, we can work with you to ensure your application is complete by the hard deadline, because incomplete applications aren't reviewed for admission. And the later you apply closer to that January 15th, we're processing hundreds of applications at that same time. So it's not guaranteed that we're going to be able to communicate with you immediately on what is missing from your file to complete it. So the required pieces for the MIA are going to be your online application and the application fee, transcripts, like I said earlier, from all 4-year colleges or universities attended, a statement of purpose, resume, and what's different about MIA is we also ask for an international experience essay, just to let us know what is your experience in international affairs, what sparked your interest, maybe it's courses, countries you've studied or worked in, maybe you have family members that are from international countries. We're just wanting to know what your background is. We also require 3 letters of recommendation, and then a GRE or a GMAT test score is required if your cumulative GPA is below a 3.2. If it's a 3.2 or above, it's completely optional and it's up to you to submit those test scores. For those from non-English speaking countries, we do require proof of English proficiency, and we'll go over that in a little bit more detail here in just a few slides. But the English proficiency, for those of you that are from other countries, it can be satisfied in a number of ways. It could be GRE test scores, GMAT test scores, the TOEFL, IELTS scores, or if you've graduated from an institution in the United States, an accredited university in the United States. Catherine, can I move the slide over? So to jump into our combined MIA Masters of Public Health degree, the 3-year degree. For this degree, we do start with fall entry, and you start applying to the Masters of Public Health through the School of Public Health. They do require a SOFIS application for you, so you would need to submit a SOFIS application and pay their application fee. I'm not sure what that is. And then submit an internal application for the MIA portion of that degree program. We would also ask that you submit transcripts, and I know that the SOFIS application will ask you to upload a transcript from Texas A&M University, and I've been informed by the School of Public Health that they do need you to upload your Texas A&M transcript. Then we would need a statement of purpose, resume, an international experience essay, 3 letters of recommendation, and then of course your GRE or GMAT test score for those that have a cumulative GPA below 3.2. And then, like we said earlier, the proof of English proficiency. So just kind of to let you know, the February 1st is a priority deadline for this combined joint degree program because we are working with the School of Public Health to process those applicants. They do apply for fall entry for MPH, but then a year and a half later for the spring semester, they enter the MIA portion of the program. So the internal application that you submit for the MIA portion of the degree will ask you to upload an international experience essay. And then, of course, if you wanted to update your resume to be more geared towards international affairs and in the statement of purpose, it will all ask you within the MIA internal application. The next degree program is our Master of International Policy, or 1-year degree. And like I said before, to apply, you do have to have 6 years of professional experience in international affairs, and we do not offer any funding or scholarship opportunities for this degree. So for the spring deadline, our deadline is coming up in 3 days. It's October 15th with a fall deadline of April 15th. So if you are able to get your application in by that deadline, great. If not, still contact me because we can work with you to see if we can go ahead and process your application for those semesters. So we'll accept late applications after that. The required items for your application into the Masters of International Policy include your online application and fee, transcripts, your statement of purpose, resume, and now the difference between MIP and the other degrees is it only requires 2 letters of recommendation, proof of English proficiency, and then GRE scores are optional, but we do encourage it for those with a GPA below 3.0. So a little bit different than the other degrees, so just take note of that. So your steps for applying, like I said earlier, we are switching from the Apply Texas application over to UNICAS. And UNICAS is our universal application system that we will be using moving forward. So the UNICAS application, we do have the website on our, the direct link to our application is on our website, where you will be asked to enter 4 quadrants of information. You'll enter your personal information in quadrant 1, quadrant 2 is your academic history, and then quadrant 3 is your supporting information, which includes uploading copies of your transcripts. And like I said, it's from every 4-year college or university attended. Just a little side note, the system will automatically ask you to upload transcripts for every college, including Texas A&M. You do not need to upload transcripts from Texas A&M. I can pull those from my side, and if you graduated from a 2-year college, we don't need those transcripts either. So that note in the system is a general note that we couldn't remove. It's just a general note applied to every single application in Unicast. So just a little bit of clarification there. The application will ask you if you've taken a GRE or a GMAT, and if so, would you like to enter those scores? And then uploading your resume is a requirement in the step 1 of the application. Once you've entered those 3 quadrants, then it asks you, okay, great, what program would you like to apply to? And our degrees can be found by Master of International Affairs, Public Service Administration, or International Policy. So you would select the degree, and now it moves you into quadrant 4, or the final quadrant of the application, which is your program-specific materials and questions. So the second step, now that you've got your basic information, and I see we have some questions, so I'll go ahead and stop here and answer as I go along. So Brian asked, my GPA is above the threshold for being required to send the GRE. Is it encouraged that I send it anyways? Interested in MIA. If your GPA is above the threshold, that 3.2 GPA, it is completely up to you if you want to submit test scores. I usually recommend, if you are a great test taker and think that you can score at or above our average GRE scores, that can only help strengthen your application. But if you're not a great test taker, don't take it, don't provide scores. Just continue with that, waiving that GRE requirement for your application. Matthew asked, you want to see transcripts from universities attended but not graduated from, right? Correct. So Texas A&M actually requires transcripts from any college or university, four-year college or university you've attended, regardless if you've earned a degree from that college. Then John asked, does the four-year college transcripts include semesters outside of the 10-year fresh start window? I'm not sure what the fresh start window means. I can tell you that Texas A&M will look at your coursework. They will look at that you enter on your application, and they will also look at your transfer credits as listed on your transcripts from wherever you graduated from, and they will determine if it's a four-year college or university and require it. They will automatically put a hold on your account pending those official transcripts if you're admitted. Okay, Brian asked, just to clarify further, I attended University A but transferred to another with all my credits carrying over, which is reflected on my transcripts for University B. I graduated from University B. Do I still need to request transcripts from both? Yes. So even if your transfer credits are listed on another transcript from which you obtained a degree, we still need the original transcript from the college or university you obtained those credits from. Okay. Then Mohammed asked, is there any placement and career center for grad school students? And yes, there is. Catherine, do we want to get into that a little bit later, or do we want to go ahead and answer that question now?
Let me just say right now that the Career Center at A&M has so many different departments they're having to cover. We have our own career services office that works uniquely with our students, both for internship and for employment purposes. So yes, you can utilize those resources on campus, but more likely you're going to get more out of the ones from us.
Okay, so I have another question here. It says, I was under the impression that universities will only send official transcripts from one university to another, not to the student. Is this correct? Official transcripts are only considered official if it is transmitted from the university where you're requesting your transcript from directly to the registrar's office here at Texas A&M. So if you send transcripts to me, I can upload them to your file, but they're considered unofficial. Once they reach any other person's hands, it is considered unofficial. A&M will require you to submit official transcripts. And then, how about transcripts from international universities in cases like study abroad? So in that case, it is very specific to the transcript. So all international universities include their transfer credits differently on transcripts. So I have to take a look at that exact transcript to make sure the course name, the course grade, the semester, and the college you took that course from is listed on your transcript. And if it's not, we would require the original transcript from the original university. So it's a case-by-case basis. I would need to take a look at your transcript to make sure. And then that also goes for study abroad. Okay, so to resume, once you've selected your program on your application and you answer our program specific questions such as how many years of professional experience do you have, what would be your preferred track or preferred concentrations, we ask those types of program specific questions so that way we can process your application accordingly. And after that step, we do ask you to upload your statement of purpose and your international experience essay for the international affairs applicants. That is required in order to submit your application, so just be prepared and make sure that you have that written before you submit. I also have a section on the application where you can upload your unofficial test score report. So of course you would need to submit official test scores, GRE or GMAT test scores, over to Texas A&M admissions. But if you have a copy of your score report, I can use that as placeholder. So upload that to the program materials section of your application, and I will pull that and put it in your file. And then we also offer application fee waivers for those that are members or alumni of service organizations. So if you have a letter confirming your service, you can upload that to your optional documents. The next step is you enter the contact information for 3 recommenders, or 2 in the case for MIP, but you would enter the name and email address for those recommenders. And the recommenders do not have to submit their recommendation before you can submit your application. All you have to do is enter their name and email address for 3 recommenders or 2 for MIP, and then you can submit your application. Once you submit, you can come back in, check on the status of your recommendations, send reminder emails, and until all 3 of those are submitted. And then once you have all 4 quadrants, you are now eligible to submit your application. And an application fee for UNICAS has gone up from Apply Texas. It's going to be $89 for domestic applicants and $114 for international applicants. We do offer a few waivers. So contact us directly if you have questions about that or see our website. McNair scholars and those asking for need-based application fee waivers need to reach out to Texas A&M admissions directly because they may provide waivers we do not here at the Bush School. And then I have a few more questions, it looks like. How do we upload a copy of our transcripts if they'll be considered unofficial if we, the student, upload it? Could be I just need to call you individually later on this. You can call me, but what I mean is I can use your unofficial transcripts to review your application. Your official transcripts have to be submitted before you can register for classes, but that's only if you're admitted. So you submit unofficial test scores, we put it in your file, you wait for an admission decision. If you're admitted, that's when you would submit your official transcripts almost immediately. And then Brian asked, since I attended 2 different colleges and will be sending transcripts from both, would I list my GPA as a combination of the 2 on the application itself or just the university that I received a degree from? It's from the university you received a degree from. So whatever your cumulative GPA is on your bachelor's transcript, that would be your cumulative GPA to enter on your application. Just to clarify, can you start applying as a junior? And as Catherine says, you can apply as a junior if you're a Texas A&M 3+2 student. So this next slide, after, like I had just said, if you receive an admissions decision, which our decisions go out in mid-March, if you receive an admissions decision and you're admitted, that's when you would go ahead and submit your official transcripts directly from the university to Texas A&M's registrar's office. You will have a registration hold on your account, preventing you from registration or registering for courses until your official transcripts are on file. So just be aware of that. So I recommend, as soon as you know if you're admitted or not, and if you're admitted, submit your official transcripts. There should be an automatic next step. But after your application is submitted, you would go ahead and submit your official test scores. So that's going to be your GRE, GMAT, TOEFL scores, IELTS scores. We have all of these codes on our website. And for those that need proof of English proficiency, make sure to check out our website as well as the Texas A&M admissions website, because they have other methods in which you can prove your English proficiency. That's either you have a verbal score of at least a 146 on your GRE or a 22 verbal score on your GMAT. And then there's various other criteria, such as completing all 4 years of your undergraduate degree or graduate degree from a university in the United States. So just check out those websites. They have a full list of details. All right. So the content, just being familiar with the content of the degree that you're applying to. So we just have a couple of suggestions. These are not required. It's just topics that students can go ahead and look into and make sure that they become more familiar with to be successful in the programs. So for the Masters of Public Service Administration, we recommend students have a background in American government, economics, micro, or macro. We do have an economics course, and we also have a quantitative methods course. So the statistics or research methods and or calculus are going to be very helpful in passing that class. The Masters of International Affairs or the Masters of International Policy, specifically the National Security and Diplomacy track of the MIA program, looking at courses or learning more about international relations or world politics, diplomatic history, American foreign policy, or 20th century history are recommended. And then for those that are in the IDEP track of the MIA program, we recommend you go ahead and be familiar with economics, like I said, micro or macro, and statistics. We do have 2 lists of free resources for preparation or review for your skills before entry into the program. So a lot of people get concerned about this quantitative methods course. Don't worry. Just go to Khan Academy, and we have our website here. There's a couple of different areas in which you can get practice on, refresh your memory if you haven't taken a lot of math since high school, or you only had to take one in college. Just take these refresher courses to refresh your knowledge in those areas, and you'll be fine. Spreadsheets, of course, Microsoft Excel, you're going to be using extensively in the degree program. All right. Catherine, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to you. Oh, wait. I have a couple of questions. Quant isn't required for MIP, correct? Yes, that is correct, John. Durand asked, this may be an invasive question, but does the Bush School seek diversity by boosting applications from previously unrecruited areas? I'm not sure about boosting, but we do not boost applications based on diversity. Yes, we would like to increase our applicant pool to be diverse, but we don't necessarily boost applications. And then, okay, I think that's about it. I think Catherine and Justin answered some of the other questions that were coming in. So just to hit on this next slide, the admissions advice. So I get questions from applicants all the time about what are you looking for in a personal statement or your statement of purpose? Those are used interchangeably. But this is your place to tell us who you are. We want to know what your background is, what your fit is for the program. We're trying to figure out who you are and if you would fit within the program and if this program is right for you. So take your time and make it a very much a strong statement piece telling us about yourself. Letters of recommendation, 3 letters are typical, or 2 for MIP. But for those that are right out of undergrad or in undergrad, we do ask at least 2 be from a faculty or an advisor. and then one other can be from a former employer, a mentor, or an advisor. If you're not right out of undergrad, so you've been in the professional field for a number of years, we do understand you probably aren't in touch with those faculty or advisor members. So you can submit more than just that one recommendation from a former employer, supervisor, and mentor. Just make sure to choose someone familiar with you on multiple levels, or you've had in more than one class. So that way they can give us an accurate picture and a well-rounded overview of their recommendation for you. You would supply each recommender. What we recommend is send them a resume highlighting your undergrad so they can reference that and go back to some of your accomplishments. Include your graduate and career goals in your email or your contact with that recommender just to let them know where you're going. List of the programs you applied to and their deadlines, or the list of programs you are planning to apply to, so that way they can relate your recommendation to the program you're applying to. And then make sure to send them the correct recommendation links or forms to submit with their letter. So we require a letter of recommendation as well as a recommendation evaluation. We have a recommendation form on our website if they're having problems with the automated system. But just to let you know, once you enter their contact information in Unicast, the system automatically sends them an email with instructions on how to upload their letter of recommendation and fill out that brief evaluation questionnaire. It is automatic from the system, and from that point forward, you can log into your Unicast application and monitor the status of those recommendations. It'll say sent or received once they've clicked on it, and then submitted once they've submitted. So it's really helpful if you do it through Unicast and you can keep a status update on those. If you see someone that's not submitting a recommendation and it's getting closer to the deadline, you can initiate a reminder email and it sends them another email reminding them they still have a recommendation to submit. So another piece of information that we advise applicants preparing for the GRE test is if you have the time, you're motivated, you have the self-discipline, and you do well on a standardized test, then you can study yourself and probably do well. But each test vendor has free practice sets, like on the GRE website, they have free practice tests that you can run through, see where you score. And I did that when I was taking the GRE, is I just took those practice tests to figure out if I needed to move on to a more review sessions, maybe look at Kaplan or Princeton review, et cetera, to help me study. But if you have the funds, you can consider those test review courses like Kaplan, Princeton review, et cetera. There's also various books and software available, so feel free to look at those. There's also online resources within each test. So GMAT has their own test with practice sets, GRE has their own website with practice tests, et cetera. And like I was saying earlier, if the GRE is optional for you, in your case, you're not happy with your scores, you can email us, and we advise you to email us to have them pulled from your applicant file. So just make sure to communicate with me that, you know, the GRE is optional for you and the GRE didn't go as well, didn't go as hot. So tell me to remove those from your applicant file and I will remove them from consideration. If you still intend to submit GRE scores, even though it's optional, also communicate that with me so that way I can hold your application until we receive those scores. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move them on to review, and I won't come back to your application and look for GRE scores that you may have submitted after that point. So just make sure to communicate that with me. And I'm going to hand it back over to Catherine at this point.
All right, I've got it. So the admissions criteria and decisions, just want to remind you that we are reviewing these holistically. So we're looking at all the materials that you are supporting, right? The essays, the resume, your transcripts, but we're also including the interview quality. The interview is important for us. We do get a lot of information from you guys about your goals and your fit. So that is an additional part that plays a role in a decision. So that's why we can't give you admissions decisions generally, unless there's some kind of unique aspect for a military person who needs it for work orders. We won't give those decisions until early March. So at the time that we are making those letters out to you guys, we'll also do our financial aid, because we will consider those kind of at the same time those committees are meeting. But we're looking for academic potential and leadership qualities. These are the students that are go-getters and do well in class and go get help when they're struggling, or they outreach for their fellow students and really start that networking aspect that we love to see in our students. And there's a propensity for serving in the public, nonprofit, and private sectors. And to someone who loves and wants to go into international development, which tends to skew heavy on the private side, not going to be considered as heavily? No, of course not. This is a good balance. We're just also making sure that you realize it's not always just about grades. There's a lot of other aspects that you can convey to us about your enthusiasm and about your past work experience or your volunteerism that can also help you through this process. Now, the committee consists of both faculty and staff who are reviewing and interviewing the applicants. So I mentioned this earlier, but we're interviewing double the intended class size. So if we are looking for a class of 90, we're interviewing about 180. So if we only have 200 applications, there's only 20 or so that we kind of shove to the side. The other 180 are moving forward to be interviewed. And then those decisions will be coming out by mid-March. Somewhere around that March 10th to 12th is usually when they head out. And then you guys have a decision to get back to us by April 15th. That's kind of a national deadline date that almost all schools follow. I will tell you that a wait list does usually exist for the International Affairs Department. Their MIA will fill up, and in case we have more people decline us than we thought, we can and will turn to a wait list. Now, sometimes we won't know that until the summer for openings, because a lot of the no's either come towards the end of that April 15th or into the summer as plans change for people. So I'll be in touch with people throughout the summer to let them know our situation and if you're willing to still hang on. Public Service and Affairs Department usually doesn't have a wait list. They use it very sparingly. So it just depends on how the applicant pool looks that year. But if you're on the wait list, you're not ranked at that time. You're just notified if and when places become available. And we just stay in touch with you to know what your situation is and if you can hang on for a while. So I'm going to throw some stats out here really quick, and then I've got another slide right after this that gives a little bit more. But I did 3 years worth of enrollment stats. And in this case, the GPA was a 3.44, GRE is around a 303. That verbal and quant scores are very similar from year to year. GPA for MIA is a 3.68, about a 308 or 309 average. But again, it's merit and experience and fit that often are going to affect that scholarship level, because they are merit awards, not need-based, not experience-based, but merit. And so usually faculty skew a little heavier to that GPA and what you've done in the past. Sometimes that can include some experience, but experience can't overlook a 2.8 GPA. So you just have to keep those things in mind and be sure that you're conveying to the faculty through your statement what you're bringing to the table. And the resume plays a big part in that too. But we enroll 80 to 90 students per department for the MPSA and MIA. Now our MIP is much smaller. Here on campus, that MIP typically is somewhere between 8 to 12 students over the course of a year. Now this year, I think we had 8 for the fall, and we'll have another 2 or 4, some in the spring coming. But that one's a little bit different. Now for the DC environment for the MIP, that is just beginning this spring. So in that case, I think if they can get a dozen students in the door and just get the ball rolling with people committing to both an MIP and a work schedule, then they're going to be happy with that. I want to say that eventually they're going to have this a very robust environment up there in DC, but for now we had a very short timeline for just this fall, and they haven't even finished doing their hiring yet for staff there. So unfortunately, Ashley's kind of been thrown under the bus with trying to not only handle our on-campus here at College Station, but the ones there in DC and keep an eye on them. But there is contact information that we can relay to those that are interested in the DC campus for that Master of International Policy. For those that want to do some follow-up directly with Jackie, Lindy and her team as that kind of becomes a little bit more robust in the next month or two. So I will say that both of these locations, both here in College Station and DC, we're looking for seasoned practitioners and research professors who are teaching you. We want and crave that interaction with you guys of a very practical based experience. It's not just theoretical. It has its place to have the theory, but we want you to have that hands-on and learning experience from the faculty who've been in the trenches. So here are those stats that I broke out by the three primary degrees here, and that's the Master of Public Service Administration, the MIA for International Affairs, and the MIP, which is International Policy, which requires 6 years. So you can see the total enrollment we had this fall, which is below our typical, and that is because of COVID and some of the changes of decisions that people had to go through, either because of family situation, economic situation with jobs and not wanting to leave right now, or because of international and visa issues. So averages still look good through here. You can see what our average ages are. Typically that's closer to 25. So I think some of the more experienced students did have some issues of coming back to school right now, especially with it being more online basis. But the percentage for men and women usually is closer to 50-50, skewed a little higher on female this year. Minority percentages are looking really strong. We do really well with underserved groups here at the school, usually hitting around that 30% mark for both programs. International percentage, this isn't too far off. I want to say MPSA typically has a few more international students, usually hitting between 15 to 20%. We did have to defer 14 of our Master of Public Service students this year. MIA didn't experience quite that much, but they're usually at 10%, so they're right on target with theirs. And then the non-resident, usually that's between 50 to 60%, depending on program, but we are a little bit more Texas heavy this year. Average work experience, I will say that we love to have that 2 to 5 or 5 plus, but we're not going to turn away good undergrad students. So don't let that lack of experience keep you from delaying grad school if it makes sense to come right now, just because of where you are in your life and wanting to continue on. So quick comments. I think I've got 2 slides on financing. I just want to make sure that you know at the graduate level, a lot of what you're going to receive for financing is through scholarships and fellowships. Most are merit-based. They don't have to be paid back, typically used for tuition. A lot of times they're just applied to your bill, so whatever's left over goes back to your account and you can use it however you want, including living costs. And they generally go to the students that departments most desire. So a lot of competitive schools, they may only offer scholarships to the top 25%, top 10%. We are supplying scholarships and fellowships to 100% of our MPSA and MIA students. Now, MIP is a little different. They do not offer funding for those students, but it's a 1-year degree, so the cost savings is a little bit better for that. Assistantships is great if you can get it at some schools, but we only provide grad assistantships in our 2nd year. So you're required to work 10 to 20 hours per week, either teaching or, well, our case, we don't have teaching, but there are other campuses that do, where you're working in a research capacity for a monthly salary or a tuition reduction. But you have to check with your departments in whatever programs that you're applying to see how they handle GA positions. As a reminder, the Bush School, we do not do GA positions until year 2. So you're coming in with scholarship and fellowship. If you want to apply for a GA position and you get it, you have to give up the 1st year Bush School scholarship because you're now earning closer to $14,000, give or take, for that GA position, and you just can't double dip with Bush School funds. You can get a GA position elsewhere at Texas A&M and still be okay and keep ours, but not 2 at the same time for our funding. A lot of students are going to rely on loans, so just realize that's part of the funding at the grad level. Do apply for FAFSA, get that submitted, and just make sure that you're aware of what other funding options can come up. There are also sometimes grants available through departments. Texas A&M, for instance, has a Texas Aggie graduate grant. So as long as you're from Texas and you are earning less than $10,000 in the year, then you can apply for this grant. and you can earn an additional, I believe, $3,000 for the year if you are awarded it. You can also look for part-time work. A number of our students do work part-time jobs. You just have to find what works for you in terms of the hours and still taking care of your academics. So you can look on the university job sites for potential on-campus jobs. We have jobs for Aggies that students often search, but you can also reach into the community or on the campus for more relevant options to find that balance. So I mentioned 100% of our incoming full-time MPSA and MIA students receive scholarships. Now, most of those are going to be an average of $3,000 or $5,000, but we do have awards that are worth upwards of $29,000. Those are the full ride awards, but most of our students, 2/3, are getting between 3 and 5. So just keep that in mind. And then grad assistants are available in year 2. And then the internship scholarships, if you are receiving an internship over the summer that does not have funding, you can apply for some additional funds from the Career Services Office to help you sustain over that summer. And that depends on location as to how much is granted. Now, the in-state rates, and you will receive that no matter where you're from, because when we grant scholarships, we are also able to offer tuition waivers that allow you to pay Texas rates in the MPSA and the MIA, not for the MIP. So we're running about $13,200 for tuition and fees before the scholarship. And then you can subtract that amount, and then you've got a very livable, usually around an $7,000 to $8,000 per year in your tuition and fees. Cost of living is estimated around $21,000 a year. On a side note, I put this in a different color. MIA students, remember, they don't get funding, so they can't get the waiver. It does matter where you live. In this case, $16,500 per year for Texas residents, and it's $31,800 for non-residents. And I forgot to put that on here, but the MIP cost in DC is going to be running $3,900 per class. So $3,900 per class, and you've got 10 classes to take. So that degree is going to be a little under $40,000 over the course of it running. So last couple of things to think is you need to remember to compare your options. So many admissions decisions do not come with aid rewards. So just, it's fine if you really want to be at that #1 school that's on your list. Just look at your willingness to incur debt for the program and what it's going to get you for the bonuses of the networking and the program. There's a lot of great programs out there that cost less that are going to be just as monumental in you being able to maneuver in your field of interest. So compare the tuition and fees and the living costs over the length of the program. See if that campus location works for you. If you can, try to go visit the campus so that you don't make an uninformed decision on what you think it will be like, but when you got there, it wasn't anything like that. Is the program or school reputable and willing to work with you? Are you able to develop faculty professional relationships? This is probably aimed more at the DC location where faculty sometimes come in and out because they're also working within the field in the DC area. Just know that faculty are hopefully available for you and advising and networking. So you want to be able to reach out to them and know that they'll answer and interact with you. What kind of professional development, internships, travel, speakers, capstone projects, research opportunities, what do you want and does that program offer it? What's commonplace there? How is employment assistance and alumni networking? Make sure that you are getting some payback for that degree and you have some ability to interact with people who have recently graduated or have been out for 10 years and can help you network. And can you see yourself growing in your 2 years and improving your current self? And maybe that's putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and going into a different area that's going to challenge you for not only your political beliefs, but maybe sometimes those socially held beliefs. And just decide what are the factors that matter to you and what you're willing to take on. So I'm not going to read all this, but just reminding you that here at the Bush School, we've got the passionate faculty, specialized concentrations that you can build, the collaborative environment, the people are the best thing about Texas A&M here at the Bush School, the consulting projects you can do, getting real world industry experience. You will have an opportunity for professional internship if you so choose. The research university is a top 10 best value university. You've got speaker and events, career and faculty advising, great employment rates, and we're affordable. So I've thrown a lot at you. I put 2 different email addresses here and our phone number. Ashley and I are available to help you every step of the way through this. Bush School admissions at TAMU is generally more of a general question. People aren't sure what it is that, I guess, general answers, right? And I can kind of cover that for them. But once you've applied and you've got very specific questions about the application or about the Bush School specifically through the process, you can email bushschoolapplications@TAMU. And both of us answer the phone, probably Ashley a little more than I do, but we're here to help you. So are there any other questions? I've got just a couple of minutes. I'm going to open this up. If you want to just unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free to do that right now, and we'll just keep this open for about 2 or 3 more minutes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes, John.
The MIP in DC, I saw it was kind of billed as a degree for working professionals. I just accepted a job full-time in the Beltway. Is that something that I'm going to be able to actually do while working full-time?
Yes, you should be able to do that.
Okay.
So you're going to work with the staff there in the DC office and figure out how your work is going to happen in kind of that part-time basis, because that's
Okay.
what they're intended to do, right? So you may be doing 1 or 2 classes at a time and just slowly, incrementally taking care of that degree. But it is only 10 classes as opposed to traditionally our MIA and MPSA, which are 16 classes.
Right.
Most are going to get done in a year, could be a little longer if needed.
And does that occur physically on the new DC campus?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we have a location, it's a ground floor, and then also occupies multiple floors on the building. That's just a couple of blocks from the White House. So it's easy metro access. The location, just in case you are curious, it's 1620 L Street, Northwest.
1620 L Street.
Mm-hmm. And so if you just Google that, you'll see right where it's located, and that's where we open up in the spring.
Perfect.
And right now we're just starting with the MIP, but they are going to eventually have certificates and some additional master's degrees. But right now you have to have that 6 years experience for the MIP to get in. But eventually we see Aggies who are going to get out and get settled there, and then we'll have a degree that's more like our, hey, you can come fresh out from your bachelor's degree. It's just not in place yet. We're going to take a little bit of time to develop that and get our staff settled.
All right,
Any other
thank
questions?
you very much.
You're welcome. So I don't want to have too much dead time, and I know we're right at our closing time. It's after 1 o'clock now. So I'll just encourage you that if you do have some follow-ups, definitely just reach out to Ashley and myself. We're happy to help. And thank you guys for attending. We appreciate you being here. And then just let us know how we can help you. Hope to see your applications by December 15th or at the latest, those hard deadlines. And just realize we do have a couple more webinars coming up. So check out the website. Some of you are already registered, and we'll send you reminders. So thank you guys. Have a good day today.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.